Welcome to Book Club, where we talk on video about things we read with our eyes, or in some cases our ears, right, James?
You know me.
Yeah. On this, I actually am very curious about that. I'm going to ask you questions about the voice. This edition, we are focusing actually on Project Hail Mary, a book James suggested. Thank you, James. Spoiler alert, I guess. We loved it, or more or less. I think we really enjoyed the book. So speaking of spoiler alert, yes, everything from here on out is a full spoiler. We're gonna talk about this in detail. If you haven't read the book yet, too late.
What are you waiting for?
Yes, don't pause this. It's a live video unless you're getting it in the future, and then pause it. I'm not sure, whatever. But yes, so we are going to talk about Project Hail Mary. It is the latest book by Andy Weir, who you may know as the author of the book that became the screenplay that became the movie you saw, The Martian.
That Matt Damon guy.
Yeah, Matt Damon. No, wait, that's not quite accurate, but close. James, since you're the one who suggested this book, please walk us through the basics of why and the synopsis.
Sure. So Hail Mary is Andy Weir's third book, and this one is more in the vein of The Martian. We follow Ryland Grace, a scientist of sorts who wakes up on a spaceship, Project Hail Mary, but he doesn't have any memories, and he knows that he is now alone and hurtling towards a foreign sun, only knowing that his goal is to save humanity from its current plight. It's a great movie pitch, great elevator pitch. Somebody, whenever he put this out, I think they did already buy the screenplay before the book was done.
It's going to feature Ryan Gosling, I believe.
Yep.
Oh, well, I'm on board.
Very exciting.
Yeah. So, and I think at this point in Andy Weir's career, it's, you're writing a book, can we option it? But in this case, I actually think this, like you said, it runs really well for a easy narrative. So why did you originally read this book? I think it was something you had already read, and then like a lazy person, you just said, "Why don't we just read this book I'm reading?" And we all just said, "Yeah, all right, fine, we'll read the book you're reading."
Well, so I'd read The Martian, and I prior to the movie, and I loved it. It's like this, an incredibly quick read, really easy to read, despite being
technical.
Yeah, technical, right? And full of a lot of cool stuff. And I read his next book, Artemis, which was fine. We
read that and talked about that.
Yeah, it was okay.
It was not The Martian.
He tried a really different narrative style. It just didn't quite suit, I think, his style of writing. So it made it slog at points. But I had heard good things about this book. So I decided to pick it up, and I was pleasantly surprised that it read similar to The Martian. And then I think it is just enough different going on with it that I don't feel like it's retreading ground of The Martian. Like it isn't
Martian harder. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but it could have been, right?
In a way.
Very easily. Martian with higher stakes.
I was concerned in the first few chapters that it was going to be The Martian, but harder.
Right.
But then chapter 6.
Yeah, that is the pitch, right? It's just The Martian, but instead of just Matt Damon's life in the balance, it's all of the world's lives in balance.
I'm not sure how much more the stakes are higher. I don't know. I think very highly of Matt Damon.
Matt Damon, all of humanity.
Yeah, they're about equaled out. So I think Michelle and Gwen are a little bit more like I was going in on this, in that we were all reading like 40 books each, which is not normal. Normal for us, but not normal for a person. What did you two feel when I'll call on one of you at a time, I guess. Michelle, what did you feel when you were like, all right, put the book down or not put the book down? It's a James recommendation.
Yeah. You never know with him.
Wow.
I'm not a sci-fi person in terms of reading. I like sci-fi movies. I'm usually not really one to really fall into sci-fi books just because they tend to be, I like to read for leisure.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really like to read for, like, I can't even read Game of Thrones because there's too many character names. I can't follow it. It's too
Fair.
much. I want to read something to just kind of decompress from the world and just enjoy it. This book, I read like the first 2 chapters. I was like, and then you were all like, oh, but the book. And I was like, okay, well, now I have a deadline. And then I read all of it in like 3 days.
Oh,
Not like back to back, but like, a little section here, a little section there, and here. And it went so smooth. It was great. I really liked it. I recommended it to like 4 people. Not that anyone listened to me, but maybe now they'll see this and they'll be like, yeah, maybe you should read that book. I was even like, I have a PDF of it. You want to read it? I mean, no, I don't, because we don't take things off.
No,
the
not at all. No, our libraries were not back-ordered.
We all have physical copies of this book.
Actually, why don't you explain this little comment from our audience member? You never picked it up. I think is this a knock against your choice of reading, James? I believe it's an audiobook knock. We'll say that.
It is. I do most of my reading via audiobook these days. Though I probably could have read this one. It does read easy. It's just time with the kid and everything. Most of my free time is the 45 minutes I'm alone in my car on my way to work.
Right. And when you're not crying, right?
Yeah,
I know how that is.
Get a good cry in there and then start the book.
I'll throw to Gwen in a minute, but I want to put a pin in 2 things. Go back to the quality of the audiobook. I'm very curious about it. And I forgot the other one because, of course, the kid. No. We keep mentioning easy reads, which makes this sound like it's very simplistic. And I think we should expand upon that in a little bit. But before we get into that, Gwen, what were you reading and how did you decide to juggle this? You have respect for James. I'm sure you value his opinion. Yeah.
I do. James and I have done a lot of reading together, actually, over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And, outside of non-pro stuff, we've talked about books. So
I feel like I bring you down to my level. I'm like, here's this really easy read. And Gwen was like, I'm done with it in 45 minutes.
Yeah, that happens sometimes. Not so much that like they're easier than other things I read. I read a lot. So, some of it is more complicated than other things. So when we were talking about this, I was reading Bridgerton books and I was like, I just blew through them and it's fine. And then I picked up Circe, which is by Madeline Miller, which is like a retelling of Greek myth, which is, I would say, like a heavier, more literary text, if you will. And I really loved that one.
Yeah.
But like for completely different reasons. I usually like fantasy a little bit more than I like sci-fi, and Circe's a little more in that fantasy land. But I do enjoy a good science fiction novel. I enjoy almost every genre if it's well done. So this is well done, I think. I was, like I said, a little concerned in the beginning that we were getting like Martian Part 2. The first few chapters, I was a little bit like, well, when are we going to get to the exciting part? Because James was like, listen, the beginning's a little slow. But then you get to this point and it's like, oh my God. And then you're going to like not want to put it down. And that's exactly what happened. So I was just sort of waiting. And at first I thought maybe James lied. And I was never going to get to it.
It happens.
Like something was like super exciting to him that wasn't grabbing my attention. But then I got to chapter 6 and aliens, and it was like, oh,
yes,
oh, we're there, okay. And then I read the rest of the book within the next 24 hours.
Awesome. So I like many of you, I was juggling books. Actually, one of our viewers asked, "What is our favorite nonfiction books?" Which is a good segue. Thank you, Karen. And if you want to leave a comment on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch, we will respond to them. So please do. So I was actually in the midst of reading 2 different books. One that I really just got my foot in the door, and it was very small. It was a novelette of Flatland, which I think I talked about in one of our podcasts. It's this book from the 1800s, and it was harder to read than you would it was not difficult to read, but there's still like linguistic issues about reading something that's timely. And it was really deep and complex, and it's using geometry to sort of map out human interaction. It was really great, and I'm reading it, and I'm like, I don't think I'm going to get a chance to finish this before I get to the next book. The book I was halfway through was a nonfiction book The Dark Heart, which was like this true crime novel that I bought for my wife and I, so we could bond, and she never read it. So I'm halfway through it, and I'm like, all right, I could push on or start a new book, or maybe we could just do this where we all read our own books and just get together and talk. Let me read a chapter of Project Hail Mary. And I read it and I was like, I'm not going to pick up any other book. This is what I'm doing. And I think that's what that's what some of us, or what we mean by easy to read. It's like it flows so smoothly. One chapter pulls you into the next chapter. The concepts, even though some of it's pretty lofty science, it's still relatively amazing.
Well.
Yeah, and it's explained well by a junior high school teacher, which is a great narrative device.
Yes,
making him be
absolutely.
the viewpoint character. So for all these reasons, highly recommended. But you, of course, are watching this or listening to this podcast, so you've probably already been sold. So let's talk about actually let's talk about that first section, right? Very basic, establishing an everyman character who's the viewpoint character. I love that they picked a junior high school science teacher for this. I felt it was a little hard to believe, but yes. I really did enjoy the mechanic of him explaining things to us.
Once
I love my colleagues.
Background, it makes
a
little more.
Michelle, go for it. Yeah.
So he's the junior high teacher, but he's the discredited scientist that tried to claim that life can exist without water. So. Which
you're the guy, the non-carbon life guy.
Yeah.
But to be fair, and tell me if I'm wrong. There's no he's just wrong.
Yeah, he is wrong.
He doesn't run into any non-carbon life. I always feel like he's going to get it.
Yeah, he thinks he's right, and then he gets to a point where he's like, "Oh, I'm an idiot."
Another great
I've been
element
wrong this whole time.
You're making your main character severely flawed, because otherwise you've got the sci-fi fantasy trope of the I know everything and I'm perfect. I'm the superhero. I'm the literary superhero. And
those are the sci-fi that I don't like.
Yeah, and
it's like I am perfect and wonderful and fabulous, and also here's all this technical, complicated math that you're supposed to follow, even though you
in the first
are not
2 chapters
a sciencey mathy person.
Well, I'm dropping this item. This doesn't go right. Let me calculate gravity real quick.
I think it's the one.
But this doesn't do that as horribly as other. I love that there was a whole section where he's like, and then we established language. You don't need to hear about it.
I think that's one of the things I like with this over The Martian is it just feels like there's so many reasons for him being our narrative character, right? The character in The Martian's great, but you do have to throw away the fact that he's like, okay, cool. So I'm going to make a vlog for all of the layman people on Earth so that they can follow my story. Like, I mean, it's a good idea, but the guy's actually like trying to survive. It probably wouldn't be his first thought,
Nobody has time.
And I'm gonna think about all the right ways to explain this, so it's easy to wrap your brain around. Well, it's great and it's amazing to watch and read. Him being a high school teacher means he kind of thinks in that way. And then, like Michelle said, I think my initial question in this first part is, why? Right? Because it's like a high school teacher, but we get a little bit more and more as the book goes on using the flashback narrative device, right? As he's regaining his memories, we learn that he gets to be the first person to discover astrophage, which is of course the organism that's eating our sun. Yeah. And he gets, we learned that there are people, as we go farther on into the book, only certain people can be put into a coma safely because of genetic makeup. And he just happens to be one of those people, and it goes on and on.
So many good narrative tools in this one little package of you've got an explainer as the main character because they are a teacher and they're a junior high school teacher. So that's they're used to making things more approachable. So he's going to do that, like James said. You've got amnesia, so he has to explain to himself why this is happening. Wonderful way of doing any kind of exposition, because if you think there are too many names in Game of Thrones, think about all the let me give you the history. And to Martin's credit, he does it over books, so it kind of plays out in a little bit of a smoother way. But Weir has a book to capture you, and actually probably only a few chapters. So instead of just saying, let me sit you down and talk about this bacteria I made up, he does it in a way that's it's a mystery that is very compelling. This is as much a mystery novel as a sci-fi novel, which I really appreciate. All right, we talked about it. We don't have, we should get to the kicker. Point was it chapter 16? Remind me.
Chapter 6.
Chapter 6. Chapter 6.
I texted James, like I turned the page and I was like,
I was convinced that was a red herring, that it was going to be something else, or his mind was, but yeah. So James.
Anyway, so Katie and I started listening to this on the way to from Vegas to California. I was doing a work thing, and then we went to a wedding after. And I was honestly planning to listen to it with Katie, and it popped on like right at the end of chapter 5 into chapter 6 or whatever, or chapter 6 into chapter 7. And like, I'll just listen for a few minutes and then I'll pop it back. And I never went back.
Sorry, Katie.
She ended up just reading the plot synopsis online because that's what she does. But I just so you have a little background about me, I would give a lot to be the first person to interact with an alien species. Just how cool. I was immediately drawn in when we get the blip A, right? And the ships connect, and wow. Because it takes this from something that's like a Martian clone and makes it into it's just an exploration of life and communication, and wow.
Yeah. Michelle, as a person who likes creepy things, what did you think?
Please define creepy.
Anything that can literally creep on the floor.
I hate spiders, so when
oh no.
So when Grace is just like he looks like a giant rocky spider and he almost screams like a little girl, like I would do that too.
I was that girl.
I was the kid that was not supposed to stay up late and watch the scary stuff on TV, and I did anyway with my older sister, and I had nightmares for like 3 years that I was going to get abducted by aliens. So I feel like I've gotten through the trauma, and now I can read books
right there.
I would not want to be the person. You remember Scooby-Doo and Alien Invasion? That movie scared me so much as a child.
The novelization's even worse. I tell you. Ooh. So
I guess I've grown in my decades since then.
Let's see. Gwen, what did you so you messaged James as soon as that happened? Yeah.
It was whatever late o'clock at night it is when I'm able to have time to myself to read. And I was like, aliens. And then I didn't go to bed for another several hours more of reading. Because it's exciting. Because like James said, this is a turning point. We've gone from mission to save human/humanity, also mystery, figure out who I am, what's going on, to, we're interacting with other life. There's other life out there. There's other civilizations, intelligent life, to figure out how they got here and what we're going to do. And I also, at this point was where I started to see more of the humor in the book. Like there was definitely humor in those first few chapters, but this is where it got really funny for me when he starts interacting with Rocky. And, I just love the line that he gives, that guy has one human gesture and gosh dang, is he going to use it, about him just like constantly waving back and forth to each other. Like that just cracked me up.
Well, it's because
I really appreciated that.
Communication is inherently funny and awkward. Like it's framed so perfectly. Everything about getting to learn about Rocky, about the Iridians, about their species just becomes so fascinating. It's my favorite part of the book. I mean, I audibly gasped when, we're talking about how the Iridians did space travel, and because they, so for those of you following along, Iridians can't see. Well, not in the way we see. They don't have eyes. They use sound, right? A very powerful form of echolocation. So space travel to them is odd because it's entirely done by sound, but because they have no way of, and as they're talking about the death of Rocky's crew, I figure it out at the same time, like the book's figuring out. I'm like, they don't see light waves, so radiation would be unknown to them, right? They all died of radiation poisoning. And like this species that decided to go into space without knowing about radiation is just incredible. But all these little things, like, it's fun because it's real science, but it's like the world mechanics in Magic or in a magic-based world, or in a very bizarre, right, big sci-fi fantasy sort of thing, right? There are rules to the world. So Andy Weir gets to make up the rules to Rocky's world while having it grounded in our reality, and that was so much fun.
Right. What I did enjoy at this stage of the book. So I think by nature, I like to puzzle things out, right? I like mysteries, but even when watching fiction, and I think maybe James can attest to this, I'm extremely annoying, right? Because I am trying to figure out the movie before the movie tells me what the movie is doing, right? And the same thing goes with books.
I try to in a murder mystery dinner.
It's intolerable to the point where Iman will now be like, all right, pause. What happens? And then I'm like, probably these things happen. And then but to her credit, if they do, she gets really excited. She's like, you did. It's like I did a magic trick. And all I do is like, I kind of know, for the most part, the rules of narrative and why a story can go.
If you understand genre.
Yeah. So while I'm getting to this stage of the book, there's two puzzles to figure out. One is the entire, how are they going to figure this thing, solve this situation?
How do we save the sun?
And how the second part is, so when the aliens are introduced, the stakes change for me. Because beforehand, it seemed like there was nothing, like there was no realistic way this could be solved by one person in a spaceship at the end of the world who was a junior high school teacher. And it just felt a little weird. Once aliens were introduced, I'm like, well, pretty much anything could happen at this point. Another group of aliens could show up and be like, oh, we made this just for fun. Sorry, didn't mean. And, anything could happen, so that the mystery of the novel becomes more complex. But it was replaced with additional mysteries, which is how is this science fiction author going to make this alien race feel genuine? And I think it was great. It's totally not plausible at all, but totally interesting.
No.
Well, you have to suspend some disbelief.
Yeah, the part that threw me was the weeks. After a few weeks, we basically didn't need. We could understand each other without it. I'm like, no. There was actually an amazing article. I'll do a quick sidestep. I think. Oh God, is Ars Technica has the article? I promised I would have looked it up and then I forgot. Yeah, it is Ars Technica, and they described that the big problem with this scenario was the moment where, when they were discussing proper nouns, he just ends up calling Rocky because his name for himself is just a bunch of whistles that don't mean anything. Ooh. But he was able to explain what grace meant to Rocky, and Rocky said what the word grace meant in his language. And it was like, whoa, grace is really complicated. How the hell did you have time to describe what grace meant?
Aren't you supposed
grace
to be
has a morality behind it.
So
there's so much
linguistics.
You have to almost be like, let's stop talking about the danger to our worlds. What are the nuances of grace to you? Just call them a bunch of.
It's a science book, not a linguistics book.
I mean, but linguistics is science, right?
Yeah, it's definitely it's a choice. It's definitely a choice. They're like, for narrative purposes, we're going to say that this worked out, and I don't mind it. It didn't destroy me. It was like, throw this book in the garbage. But it was definitely a choice that I think if they didn't make that choice, and we talked about this a little bit in pre-production, we would have had something closer to Arrival, right?
Yes.
And that's a little heavier in many ways, and maybe not as enjoyable. Gwen,
Arrival's
do you want?
not a fun movie. It's
Yeah,
just a really
so-
good movie.
We
I don't know.
said spoilers. We said spoilers for Project Hail Mary. We won't do spoilers for Arrival, but maybe tone is fine.
So,
Right.
okay, so if you haven't seen Arrival, check out for a few minutes because we're going to talk about it. So Arrival is the Amy Adams space movie.
I don't care enough. So
I just heard Michelle say, "I don't care."
It came out in 2016. I saw it in 2019 when I was like super duper pregnant. And it does a couple of things that are narratively similar to Project Hail Mary in that the story flashes back and forth between like big alien problem and the past for that individual character. And the big aliens show up and basically knock on a window and start communicating through their whale noises. And they look kind of like giant spiders. And that, I think, is sort of the main similarities there. But Arrival is also dealing with questions about like time travel, which
the aliens in Arrival don't experience time linearly, and
Right.
when they begin to communicate, neither do you, which
Right.
makes this infinitely more complicated.
right.
So, and
like,
where Rocky is effectively a rock spider with a human brain in it.
Correct.
Right? Like his morality, his
right.
selfishness, his altruism. I'm wearing this shirt today with the bandolier and the Chewbacca-ness because he was like my little spider Chewbacca. He's like a sidekick. He was an engineer.
yeah, I
he had
thought
all
he
this
was
cleverness.
like a R2D2 but made of rocks.
Either way, if that's the only language you know, because we're idiots. Yes.
Project Hail Mary is a buddy comedy in space.
Yes.
Arrival is like a tearjerker on Earth with aliens. Because
sure.
of the sort of backgrounds of the characters. So it like sort of reminded me of that, but Ryland Grace does not have like the tragic backstory that Amy Adams' character had in Arrival, which is a big difference. So like sort of the emotional heaviness is really different. And then how seriously they're treating the alien species is really different.
Yeah. And also like the point of what the story is about, right? This is about communications, overcoming things with science, overcoming things with reason. So for this story to work well, and it does work really well, you focus on getting them to work together. So now that we're squarely in the buddy cop portion of the book, what did we think, James?
The best. But no, it was really, like I said, it was really well framed. Getting to know Rocky was amazing. Their friendship was amazing. I mean, this book would have been nothing special with Rocky. It would have just been The Martian to Martian harder, as we
for someone who
we
were
loved
complimenting
The
this book, we're really hitting Andy hard.
Listen,
Andy, we're hard on.
We loved The Martian. The Martian was great. The movie was good. Matt Damon was entertaining. Dropped a lot of F-bombs, which my high schoolers are like all about. So it makes it a great book to recommend to them because, you know.
Yeah, there's no cursing in this book.
Yeah.
No, there wasn't.
Yeah, there was a lot of
like,
all shucks and geez.
Yeah,
all
all
shucks
shucks
and
and
that's another
he cursed like once or twice.
teacher thing. Although let me tell you, as a teacher, we curse. Okay, we just don't do it in front of children.
Yes, exactly. If there were no children, as soon as he knew that there were no children in that spaceship, he would have been dropping the most
faculty lounge door closes and out come the F-bombs.
I think one of my favorite parts too, though, about Rocky is not just the fact that the potential that Rocky has enough astrophage, which they use as fuel, could possibly get Grace back to Earth, which obviously amazing for him because it was supposed to be a suicide mission. I think just the interest in Rocky gives Grace more pep, more will to live, to really get through this problem in a way that's exciting and good. And Rocky, he
needed a buddy.
And the emotional attachment to them is really believable. You know what I mean? I mean, for a lot of reasons. One, because they are the only two people out here at the end of their known worlds, you know, doing this thing. But I'm going to tell you, I cried for the rock alien when I thought he might have died. Right? Like big tears. Because I was
definitely.
like, no, not yet. You know,
that had old Frank rules about no animals may die in this movie, or I'm not going to watch it.
Yeah,
I'm not interested. I don't care how many people die. It doesn't matter.
And I like how he was a little realistic too about like, you know, like doing things that could have messed things up. You know what I mean? Like even when he tries to save Rocky, he could have harmed him.
That's the thing. That's the thing about this book that I think I liked the most compared to, like, we were talking about like the science fiction that takes itself so seriously, and you've got that like I'm too perfect hero. Like
keep thinking of Ender when you say that for Ender's Game. You know, I don't know if that's a good comparison, but Ender is like by the end, like,
you know, he makes mistakes and he realizes he makes mistakes, and then he feels terrible about it and he tries to fix it. And a lot of the time he F's up again. Like, it happens. He's very human. And it makes it, I think, a little easier to connect with this story, because like people who actually become astronauts, like, are trained to within an inch of their lives. They know exactly what the protocols are. And he doesn't. Not really. So, you know, the everyman aspect.
He has the bystander education of being an astronaut.
Right. That was one of those things that I had been slowly was predicting as the story was going on, which I don't know why I'm patting myself on the back for that one. That was, I think, pretty well telegraphed. He's like, all right, I will be training you both on every little step of this, of how to be an astronaut.
I thought the two of them were going to run away and get married in secret. Not an explosion.
Not dying.
Yeah,
I thought maybe like she was gonna get pregnant or something.
Yeah, I thought something was gonna go on there. I very much enjoyed what was his name? Du Bois.
Yes.
Where we've entered a relationship. I thought you'd like to know. I don't need to know this. Oh, but we just want to let you know. And she's on birth control, and we don't have to worry because the world's ending.
Yeah.
One of us is gonna die. Okay.
Do you have time for a quickie? Say in 15 minutes.
Let's schedule this in between our training sessions. Room class.
I love how awkward
he is there.
Can we shift gears a little bit to the flashbacks?
Right before right before that, because I think it ends up, and I think we're talking about how human, like scaling out like emotional response. So imagine how heavy those scenes are, and this will transition to flashbacks of, you know, all the kids I taught in school, they're going to be old by the time I get back, and many of them will be dead. Right? That hits hard, very hard, thinking about the little kids you're molding their lives, and you know that they're going to be facing a lot of obstacles in the future. That's true of many of the people on this conversation in this podcast.
My little babies.
Yeah, you're thinking about them and like, well, did I just basically make them destined to suffer, or are they just destined to suffer now? If he hadn't had Rocky to also like, wow, a new alien race, that really lightens the mood significantly and necessarily in this story. So again, perfect time to bring it up right as you're talking about how the world is probably, even if it's saved, it's not going to be great.
But also I like that Rocky isn't like entirely light. Right, he comes with his own baggage, the loss of his people, the not understanding of how time works in long-term space travel. So he will also, you know, I mean, he doesn't really have to grapple with the same problem because, you know, he lives for 400 years or whatever.
I grappled with that problem. I still don't understand it, and I'm never gonna, and I'm okay with that.
So
the relativity of time.
It's the theory of relativity.
Don't try to
relativity. We don't have to. It's fine.
Sure, but you know, so
she doesn't need to know.
Traveling and
no, James, you're not allowed.
No.
You're not allowed.
No.
You were talking about flashbacks, and I transitioned perfectly for you.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about Strat and the flashbacks. So this was definitely something that I think at the beginning I was like not less interested in, but like I saw it as just a standard narrative device. I didn't originally think I would find the stuff that happened there really interesting. But then I started to enjoy and like those characters there too. You know, and I think really honestly, one of the most interesting characters, and I think one of the most unrealistic yet maybe realistic things about this is maybe Strat and the organization that this runs. Because
Not realistic because it's a woman.
Yes.
A woman would never be given that kind of
Yes.
power.
Exactly.
probably not.
I
James,
just-
you're not allowed
I
to say anything at this
appreciate-
point.
The diplomacy
appreciate-
and the politics is the most unrealistic
Yes.
thing in this book.
Yes.
Past the alien,
By far.
Russia, China, and the United States agreeing
Never.
to do the same
Never.
thing with
Never.
a woman in charge?
Never.
Never.
No.
Never. They blew up Antarctica.
Yep.
This would never happen.
No.
Like, let's just pollute more, guys. We're gonna do great. Blows up
But
Antarctica.
once you've suspended your disbelief on like the sciencey things
Yeah.
and the alien things, it's like, okay, sure, we'll put a bitch in charge. Why not? Why not?
So for the record, for those of us who are listening to the podcast, I literally muted James and I. Like, no, we need to give them this floor.
I appreciate Andy Weir trying to do a thing for the ladies.
Yeah.
I appreciate
My-
it.
My point here, though,
I don't
is
believe
that
it, but I appreciate it.
We did have some strong female scientists, and I believe
did.
those.
That was
Yeah.
good.
My-
Yeah.
I think my point here is, though,
Gotta
that
see
like
it to be it.
obviously without like a singular focal point of someone to just say like, hey, you're going to make the decisions and then we'll crucify you later, right? Like that is a really good way of handling this sort of problem.
But
For
the
we're
narrative,
moving
it makes
into a
sense.
pandemic here. Do you think we'd be
Yeah.
able to do this?
So this was definitely written most
Yeah,
of this was written
pre-COVID.
pre-pandemic, and now it's like,
Oh,
But
okay, so we would all die in this circumstance.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
we would.
Yeah.
Yes, we would.
I do think that so Andy Weir is writing sci-fi, and part of that is cautionary. So a lot of this is like, I don't think this was, hey, maybe we should pollute some more. Although that's probably the only part of the book that they'd be like, yeah, let's do that part. I like that one. Yeah, let's just blow up some icebergs for my
Jeffrey
gender
Bezos is
reveal
reading
party.
this
The
like,
poor
yes,
climatologist. I feel bad for
For
him.
those polar bears.
Right?
Gender reveal party.
I felt real bad for
Wow.
that guy,
Yeah.
the French climate guy.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
French climate guy.
French climate guy. I wonder who's going to play. I also caught myself many times during the reading of this. Like, who's going to play this?
Who's
And
gonna play that
I
guy?
did not picture Ryan Gosling. I did not picture him as the lead. I'm fine with it. He's a good
I think
actor.
of him
but-
as more of a serious actor, and I see this more as a comedic role.
But I literally pictured my one of my high school science teachers, I believe my chemistry teacher. I
Me
wanted
too.
us all to. You did? Did anyone else picture a high school?
I was thinking of one of my 7th grade teachers. So.
One of my
Nice.
coworkers was like the guy in my head.
I
Appropriate.
don't,
Yeah.
you don't want to know who my person looked like, Gwen.
Was it you?
No,
Was
it
it you,
looked like
James?
Andy.
Was it Andy?
Oh,
It was like Andy. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it wasn't
That's great.
exactly Andy, but like he was definitely in
basically
my
it.
mind like an Andy facsimile. Yeah.
Andy.
I can understand that, especially because of, like we said, the not cursing and the aw-shucksing and the.
Yeah,
explain
it's
what
just his
Andy is.
attitude. He's a teacher.
You know.
It fit in there.
But what about
So
my
sorry, I
Uncle
sent
David
your
Children?
husband
I
off
gotta-
to space to die.
Just gonna throw that out there. Gwen's spouse Andy is so that podcast people don't
Yeah.
know. What.
He's a good human though.
Yeah, he would.
but is he a coward?
Well, so
Are we
can
gonna
we
get
talk
to
about
that?
Interesting enough, I pictured Andy as Rocky. I apologize. I don't know why. I just
The Labrador.
Oh my god,
size
who are they
spider
going to
dog.
have
Rocky's
voice
Andy.
that? Are they going to have somebody voice that and it be an astronomically high-paying actor like how
Oh.
Vin Diesel is Groot?
Well, so
There
I
is
wonder-
That
no-
would be funny.
Well, but so I wonder how they're going to do it. So in the book, right, when they were doing the audio, right, because I don't think this movie would
Be
be.
Alan Tudyk if anyone voices it.
Probably. This movie probably wouldn't be good if you couldn't actually have a conversation with Rocky. So early on, when they were using the machine to communicate, they would have Grace talk in the book, and then
Yeah.
they would just make the noises, like synth
I-
noises for
That's what I
Rocky.
assume will happen. It'll just be like a
Mhm.
subtitle that throughout or
Well,
dubbing throughout.
But then
I want to hear the whale song.
Yeah, when they tossed out the thing, what they would do is they would play the synth noises, and then they had like a synthetic voice sort of say the things, but with kind of like the musical synth noise in the background.
Yeah, that's what
and that worked pretty well.
Yeah,
So you understood that he was speaking a different language, but you didn't have to,
rocking
You
out.
didn't have to learn to speak alien whale.
yeah, alien whale.
All right, so we were gonna transition. Well, let's talk a little bit more about Strat as I think interesting character, interesting way to do world building through flashbacks.
For sure.
And like as you said, James, as it was going on, I became more invested in finding out what's going on. Obviously, the first mystery is why is he there? Second mystery is what's going on with this alien, and the third mystery is why is he there? Why is he there?
Well, because like you feel like early on you just get like all the reasons why he would be there. Oh man, he was the first guy to work on this thing.
Yeah.
He's working with the team. He's so close to Strat. Like he's got the gene. Like it just makes sense that at some point he volunteers. At some
point he decides, yes, I'm going to do it. I'm going to save
Gonna
humanity.
do it for the kids.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you
Gonna fist bump the alien for the kids.
The thing I was not expecting, which I liked, was him to say no. Right? So when our two other scientists died, the main one and the backup, and Strat goes to him and says, you got to go.
It's you.
Like you're the only other person who can fill in at a moment's notice. You're not the best choice.
The other available choice though is what? What
she
was
was
her?
like a Colombian scientist that hadn't gone through any of the training and would have had 2 or 3 weeks to learn everything.
She was like a biologist
phase.
of some
she was
sort.
like a student or something.
She wasn't even done with her PhD. Not ready.
But she was willing volunteer.
Yes.
Yeah.
There were thousands of willing volunteers.
I mean,
so if you want to know how insufferable it is to be be in my head, I did figure it out, or I thought about it as a consequence. So at some point I'm like, all right, they're building up. We obviously know that it's not going to be him, but we know he is the guy in the sea. So what happens to Du Bois? Why is it him? Why does everything line up for him? I'm like, well, clearly the explosion happens, and I'm like, all right, this is good. But right after the explosion happens, I'm like, doesn't feel like this is going to be enough. Something else is going to happen. I think he's going to refuse. I think he's too scared to do it. But I don't know what will eventually, it'll probably be a heart-to-heart that's going to change it around, which would have been like the most stereotypical way of resolving that. So again, knowing the genre shortcuts doesn't really help. It just helps to know what's obvious.
We went imprisonment and drugs.
Yeah, and the misdirect, the thing that I forgot about was the amnesia. Yep. Which was something I was very interested in the beginning. I'm like, why did
by the time you get to the end, you're like, what amnesia?
I just don't remember it from the coma, just like he assumes it's from the coma, which is what they planned the whole time.
Right, and the misdirect was brilliantly handled, and that made that so. Like for a person like me who always tries to ruin things for themselves, I love it when somebody is like, no, I'm still going to make this interesting for you.
I'm more clever than you are, Frank.
Yes. Thank you. And it didn't occur to me until I was reading it. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Okay, good.
But
he's going to be.
See what you did there.
I think it also makes it more impactful. I guess I'm used to in the genre, he would obviously just be the big damn hero, right? Yes. But he doesn't get that choice the first time around. So I think it's even way more impactful when, he finds out that they've accidentally bred astrophage to be immune to its cage of xenonite, and his potential friend that he's now only known for a few months out in the ether.
And his entire society.
And and that friend's entire society is now
race.
Is now lost, and he has a backup plan, so he could potentially save his home planet and Rocky's, but for him it's a suicide mission again, right? In his mind. And
it removes that impact and throws it back in with so much more impact, because suddenly like these are choices he's had to make, and you could ask whether he would make them if given enough time to think about it. I don't know. You could also ask whether or not he would have said no if they approached him at all like genuine, kind human beings, as opposed to calling him into a meeting saying, hey, guess what? You're volunteering. Later on.
Voluntold.
Yeah,
I feel like they
really well done.
kind of tried to approach him gently.
Was the
at
Chinese guy.
first. Yeah.
Yao did.
Chinese,
Yao
Yeah.
did.
he jumped in and said, I don't want to go if you're not doing this willingly.
Thank
Yeah.
you for the voice. It wasn't even a
wasn't Chinese,
stereotypical voice. It was just, you're
it
like,
was suppo-
this is a commander.
Well, he was a commander.
That's what I was going for.
Serious.
He's
No, I
such a
get it.
commander.
Yes,
Stern.
there was a little bit, but a lot of that scene built up and helped me like realize he's gonna say no. He's definitely gonna say no, and he said no. But I thought it was gonna be a heart to heart, and we had the heart to heart, but it was still no.
And it ended with prison guards.
Think about the
Yeah.
children, Grace. Do it for the children.
Yeah.
No, send one of them. They can do it.
Screw the children.
Definitely had a moment though, as a teacher. All the things I've been asked to do this last year, where they're like, do it for the children. And he's like, no, like my life matters too. And I was like, right, it does. You're right, it does. And he was like, but in this case, you're wrong.
Yeah.
You're right, but you're also wrong.
But in this case, we're definitely at the end justifies the means by like a very large margin.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's well executed final twist, and I love the way the next chapter opens up with like, oh, I see how it is, because I was also thinking that in the same phraseology in my head. Oh yeah, so I'm a coward. Oh,
That's also a really interesting way of phrasing it, though, right? Because of the amnesia, he's like, I've learned something about myself. That like obviously I probably also assumed I was the big damn hero, and that's the reason I'm here. But I'm terrible.
Oops.
but
And then he turns his ship around and he goes, but would a hero or would a coward do this? And he redeems him.
Yeah, and I really at that point, that chapter and on, it was like marathon reading. Everything was high stakes.
My
didn't
notes
stop.
for the last like 4 chapters are like chapter 26. What? Chapter 27. There's not enough time here for this to end how I want it to. Chapter 28. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, just
What
like
is
that.
happening?
I love that
Like
moment.
it all like just like it was like 15 pages and suddenly it's like, yep, and we're done now and everything's fine.
But Michelle, that's like kind of the best part of reading a book is when you're close to the end and you're like, oh, there's not enough time. Oh no, there's not enough time. How are they gonna do it?
How are they gonna do this?
How are they gonna fix it?
That happened to me in another
did
book,
you?
but then I found out there was another book, and I thought it was the last
Oh,
one.
That's what I
that's
was
why
thinking. I was like, is
I
there
don't
a
read
second-
series. I try to avoid series. I know it's hard, especially in fantasy. It's impossible. But when I'm like, you don't tell me book 1 of a million. I don't want to hear that.
I mean, I get excited though sometimes about series because it's something to look forward to if it's an author you like and you enjoyed the first. Like there are like 3 books coming out in September that I'm excited about, and that's all I'm excited about for September. These books.
There are good things about it, but no. So when Rocky realizes that Grace is outside, I was like, Fred.
Yes! That's when I
And
got
then he
it.
goes,
Can't believe it hit me so emotionally.
Grace, friend, you're here. You're here.
I know.
except it's actually like
The emotion's still there.
I know.
Yeah,
And I thought the epilogue was really sweet too.
it was. And I love everything from it, from top to bottom. So I think
Even
enjoyed
though that
the
he's
burgers.
like dying
I
of
love the me
high
burger.
Yeah,
gravity.
meat burgers were definitely a
Me
winner.
burger is great.
burger
I love that
is-
he's teaching
Oh yeah,
European
teaching with an
children with
organ.
his like ridiculous pipe organ.
I'm
He
gonna
would
learn.
definitely probably know how to do it by then, though.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Sure.
It had
Like-
been like
Sound engineers
Like,
can recognize
decades.
hertz and tones. Like it is possible.
We just have to believe that he is not tone deaf for that. to
maybe
make sense.
So-
also
Joe-
did band.
I can get on board with that.
You know, maybe he was the band.
We'll show
teacher.
Ryan Gosling singing.
He's the band teacher.
some point.
He was
Yeah.
teaching them human music.
Yeah,
He's like,
well,
"All
no,
right,
I'm saying
all
like
right."
in his past life, obviously he was the science teacher, but maybe he also did extracurricular. Or
Yeah,
you're like
yeah.
basically required as a teacher. You got to do something. You
No,
got
I
to
definitely-
coach this or
Do you think
teach
he had
It
this.
definitely
tenure?
makes sense that he was a science teacher. They didn't know about radiation or,
Do you
you know.
think you think he had tenure? I'm not sure. I
Yes.
think it's so
yeah.
difficult.
Yes.
So what I
He
really
said he'd been
did
teaching
enjoy,
for a number of years. He definitely had tenure.
He had spent a lot of time making his classroom look really cool with dead stuff in jars.
And you get all the bean bags, and that's an
You
investment.
get to do all the
don't buy
games.
10,000
You can't
bean
do
bags
that
in 1
until
year.
tenure.
No.
Yeah, you're right.
That takes time.
Collect that over the many, many years that you've been at the district.
So this got really deep, deep cuts. But what
I'm not a teacher, but I work in public.
what I really enjoy about this last chapter is prior to the last chapter, they save the day, right? They know they've got it. He saves his friend. They're on their way home. You assume things are going to be working out pretty good. And the title of this last chapter is I think it's chapter 30. Am I right? And it's 30, but it's in base 6 in Rocky's home language. So it tells you with one like weird character what's gonna happen, right? They made it enough where now he's speaking or chaptering in Iridian, and that is just that's so graceful. That's so well written. I'm sorry. It really is a great way of establishing it. Rocky sounds like he understands language, like Earth language better. So he's speaking in more complete sentences now. He's using the proper terminology for things. It really is. And everything else we talked about how, Grace seems comfortable. And I would say we book
very heavy with gravity.
Yeah. Well, and Rocky too, though, right? Like, not just speaking in the same language, but like, you can tell instantly, like with the food stuff, right? Like you can tell instantly that they're like, old friends, right? Yeah. Like the sort of stuff, obviously that you don't talk about with other people. Like it's like we went to the end of the world together. We can talk about anything, like, because obviously food is a no-go for Rocky because it's weird. It's real weird.
I love those little cultural.
Yeah, there was that, like, I loved that when they were like, whenever it was like, oh, like I forget how they phrased it. But it's like,
I sleep, like, you watch.
I sleep, you watch.
But it was like anytime anything came up and they just kind of said, well, this is a culture thing. It was just accepted and you just moved on.
We should adopt that.
We should.
We should
definitely adopt that.
If there's any lesson that can come from this, it's that.
It's human thing. Don't worry about it. So
I'm just gonna start saying Michelle thing, and I'm just gonna do it, and everyone's gonna just you can't question me.
In fairness, we do that anyways, Michelle. In fairness, all right. No, book nerds talk a lot about like opening lines and everything, and I think there are some amazing opening lines in literature. But I would say this book has one of the best closing lines ever. 12 kids raise their claws. Right? It's who here could tell me the speed of light? 12 kids raise their claws. It's such a weird thing. If you don't know the book, what happened to the book, it's like almost scary in a way. But if you know, it's the most touching, normal thing. And it's so sweet. And I love the whole thing is about like preparing the next generation to survive, and that's really just an amazing, well done book.
I also like that Grace still kind of remains Grace.
Yeah,
right at the end, the fact that people in real life aren't big damn heroes. Yeah. Even the people we frame to, they don't really continuously run into situations that put their, you know what I mean? Like Grace had one really big jump,
big damn hero moment,
and he did it.
And
right?
Now he's back to goofball.
He's still on, I'd say 40 Iridian because he's scared to go home. Right?
Yeah. Well, no. Up until that day, he didn't know there was a home. Yeah. Right? If he would have been a one-way trip, right? He would have been there, and potentially that's it because he would have died along the way. But now he knows, and he has to decide whether or not he wants to go. But he's like he has a moment where he knows Earth logically must have
survived, and
right?
He can.
What he doesn't know is it's Caesar and the monkeys
Wow.
Not at the spaceships.
Oh man! Look, just because the planet survived this doesn't mean that we didn't mess it up some other
Yeah.
way.
Oh yeah, definitely. When Stratz was elected emperor for life, and she's got some sort of reverse
aging technology. She's still there.
Sure. I was actually trying to remember the reverse Handmaid's Tale thing going on.
There is
Okay.
Just
There-
women in.
There is a morbid, curious part of me that would want to know what the epilogue chapter would look like
For
from
Strat?
Earth.
From Earth.
Let's
And
do
not
it.
just from Strat, but from like Earth in general, right?
What-
How were these people memorialized?
What are
did
some
they
of your-
know?
I want to talk about our favorite parts of the books that we haven't already mentioned, and then maybe something that you thought you wanted to dig a little deeper on. I mean, I get the obvious one to get out of the way is what happened. I want to know what happened to. So I'm not just doing what James just did. I want to know what Earth thought all along, right? I want to know once they get the message, what was in the message, right? Did Grace have said use this, or did he said so? I woke up. And guess what I remember? Or was it like piecemeal? Was like, because I assumed he was making video diaries the entire time, or this whole thing was a diary, because you don't know when you die, right? Something could happen, and you want to give them as much notes as you possibly had. So he's like gradually more hairy, bearded, and more angry when he realizes he's a cow. That's what I want to see. I want to see people's reactions to what happened to Grace. Michelle.
All right, I'm pulling up my notes. So, something that took me a really long time to figure out, and I don't know if anyone else figured it out. I'm assuming everyone else figured it out. Hail Mary, full of grace. His name is Grace.
Yes.
And the
Oh
rocket ship
God!
is full of grace, and I'm not
No.
religious, but I don't remember how it came up in I was at a wedding, probably. That's what it was. I was at a Catholic wedding, and that came up. And I'm
Mary
sitting
Ford goes,
there, and I'm like,
"No, I was reading about.
wait.
Fun.
I'm like, because it's like an unusual name. Well, not unusual, but it's not like his name's John Smith. His name's Rylan Grace. I'm sitting there, I'm like, huh.
I don't like that at all.
Grace.
I didn't think about it. No, I like that at all. No.
Now let it sit uncomfortably with you too.
This also reminds me very quickly. How did they have time to put Grace's name on the mission patch? Did they re-embroider things?
Yes.
I guess. What are
Was
the
it iron
embroiderers
on?
doing? They're like,
There were a lot
"Oh,
of people
might as
working
well
on like the
a couple of
spaceship,
days.
the boat.
Like I said, it was an iron-on. It was just,
Not a big
Yeah,
deal.
but they had to re-embroider the name Grace in
There's
the thing.
it's
You
literally
don't
just
think he had
there's a
like
sewing
patches
machine,
for
you
other
just did-
things?
I don't know. That's the part that breaks.
I think the whole
Credibility
team
for me.
had patches on all their stuff.
That's
Glenn,
one
what-
of those things that they'll fill in during the movie. You'll see him in the project shirt prior with his name on it, so it'll be like a non-thing in a movie version.
Gwen, what about moments that you really love that we didn't touch on, or what you wish they had focused a little bit on so we could find out more?
I feel like I already said this, but I appreciated the humor. And I liked sort of the quirky side characters. Like, you don't expect to get quirky side characters in a one-man suicide mission
Yeah,
the planet book.
the
Like
guy who built the
Dimitri.
Beatles. Yeah,
But we got the guy with
The crazy
Beatles.
explosive guy.
Yeah,
He was real
he was
weird.
my favorite.
I
He's
love
great
that.
at explaining science too. He's just like, it go boom, and I'm like, this is great. This is
Got
my
it.
level.
I like him.
Yeah, so like just sort of the random side characters, the quirky supporting cast. Yeah, that's what I liked. I also, Michelle just pointed out the pun and the humor. The humor is good. There's a lot of jokes in there. He got a lot of jokes.
The fact that it was Hail Mary and they were just like, maybe this will work.
Yep.
Let's stick
Good job,
Grace in it. It'll be fine.
Yeah. James,
It'll
do you
be
have
good.
anything you'd like to add before we go into the most important part of this podcast, which is Rocky art?
I mean,
Rocky art for the listeners.
I stand by that. If we were in this situation and someone guaranteed me I would meet aliens, I would be on that ship.
That's
Assuming
But what if
all
they were
in
mean
loved ones.
aliens?
I-
What if they were
What if they were
hostile?
hostile? Yeah.
I feel
Like,
like your
that was
loved
just-
ones are
That
gonna
was
be-
legitimately one of my concerns when we got to the aliens part. I was like,
Mhm.
wait,
They're gonna blow
but
each other
they
up.
explain
That's
it-
on the
They
book.
explain it really
I had a
well.
lot of anxiety about that.
They explain it really well in the book. He's like, "Why did this happen?" He's like, "Because we have the exact same problem at the exact technological point, right? We wouldn't be hostile to each other because, right? We don't, we're
both
trying
already
to solve this
I
problem.
intellectually understand that, but in my heart of hearts, I know humankind is
sci-fi.
violent and terrible.
Oh, no.
And it
And if
makes me
aliens-
anxious.
And you
But
have to
maybe
understand
the other
like,
people we
if
run into out
aliens-
there are
if
also
aliens-
violent and terrible.
If aliens pull up outside in a spaceship to Earth, it ain't going to be Star Trek. They're here for resources. But in a situation like this, like it kind of works.
I don't know. I think a lot of this is, and honestly, I can't. It's the general anthropic principle. Basically, like he says, you've got, like Rocky says, if we were smarter, if we were smarter, we would have avoided this, and if we were less smart, we'd be dead by now. And this is sort of like everything. It's the Goldilocks principle, but because like it can only work this way.
Like they
I
use
like
that
it.
same.
At very least, it's a great narrative, whether or not it's accurate or not.
They use the same theory to find the amoeba, or whatever they end up calling it.
Yeah,
because everything has.
Talmiba.
The eat the Talmiba.
I couldn't pronounce it.
Was
How
great.
did they? Talmiba.
I love Rocky being able to solve a puzzle that easily. He's like, yeah, why don't you just eat the Talmiba? And
Rocky
Grace was
much
like,
smarter than Grace. Like,
and he told him all the time, "You are stupid. Stop being stupid, human, and go to bed."
They've got like perfect sort of like the recall, like
All right. While we're showering Rocky with
so my favorite thing we didn't talk about is the ship. I really like the ship, the centrifuge, the way the ship works, the way they thought about the science problems. Like, thought that was really cool. I'd love like a little model of the Hail Mary. I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I love that. It's something I would have been all about as a kid. I enjoyed it very much now, but it's one of those things where you like. Normally, you don't want to use that as the basis for a story, and I think in some ways it was. But to be honest, it worked really well. And from a filmmaking perspective, I'm sure potential directors are like, "Let me at this.
This is going to be fun."
Yeah,
James, there is a photo in the actual book. I don't know if they gave it to you in the audio book.
Oh no, they didn't.
Here, I'm pulling it up. I'll show you.
Oh, thank you for bringing that up. Actually.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Oh man, that's awesome. That is not at all what I imagined it to look like.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go look that up.
And you can see the way that it like spins and everything in the other page.
Before we move on, James, what was your feelings about the audiobook? Good reading, good voice, good. I assume.
Oh, really enjoyed it. I think they did a great job with the audiobook. And little note for that last chapter, it didn't say 30, it played in music.
Oh, even better. That's well produced.
Who is the narrator?
You can look it up later.
So right now we're going to talk about Rocky fan art.
Ray Porter.
We don't. I'm saying his name one more time so I didn't step on it.
Ray Porter.
So
he's done a lot of television and read a lot of books.
There's no picture of this alien that is such a huge part of the story, at least not in the book. He's going to be represented eventually visually, and I have to admit, right when I was certain that this was an actual alien and not some weird misunderstanding where like it was a time dilation thing. That's one of my theories, by the way, was that he went and then Earth sent a better ship like 10 years after him.
Oh my God.
Can I tell you, I was so glad that this didn't have anything to do with time travel. I'm a little over that trope.
But the concept was kind of funny that they would send him. And then like after 10 years of tweaking it, they're like, we could do this a little faster.
He absolutely would have found the humor in that situation. And by he, I mean Andy Weir, not Ryland Grace. Ryland Grace would have been incensed by that. But
so I looked up what Rocky may have looked up, and it probably informed a little bit of what I've seen. But I tried to draw this the most from memory of the description. Then go back and research it. I'm going to go through all of our fan art of what we think Rocky looks like. I'll start with myself. And we're going to be visible on the sides of the screen as I do this. So you could like lean in and try to do. Everyone remember which way you're leaning. Yeah, that's
this
it.
Direction.
Okay. James, the other way. Yeah.
There you go.
No.
I don't even remember if he actually says fist me.
He does.
He does.
Fist me.
And he's like, buddy, no, fist bump. Not fist me. That means something else.
So you could tell I got the you don't have to keep doing the straightening your necks if you don't want to. You could tell I got the vaguely octagonal body. The bandolier was the big thing for me. The fact that he had a bandolier, not just for chewy reasons.
Oh, I
but, like,
forgot
that's
about his bandolier.
That's a cute way of showing all this stuff. So yeah, that was my. I had many different ways I could show this art, including like a share screen, but I wanted the stupidest way possible.
Of course you did.
Of course. So next, I'm gonna go with James's.
Nice.
All right, ready for it?
Yeah.
Oh,
Fred's question.
Fred's question. So, but he's got the 5 arms, and he's got the 3 little talons on each arm,
Little
and that's not. And then I tried to make him like Rocky, but I kind of pictured him a little bit because he said carapace, so I kind of pictured it more like ovular, like a spider, but without a head because he didn't need one. And then the things are supposed to be like texture that he's Rocky. And then I tried to draw his breathing box. I forgot about the bandolier. That's the box he uses to breathe. And then I made little music notes for Fred.
I like that you got his language in there. I think you may have been the only one who did that. Let's find out. Let's go to Gwen's art next. Now the major crafting starts coming in.
Uh-oh.
Oh my gosh!
Wow. This looks like concept art for Rocky. Like this looks.
So,
look at your signature. We gotta call up the producers of the movie. I think you could get on this.
Yeah, so at first I was like, I'm going to draw him from like an above angle and then a front. And then I was like, neither of these is really exactly what I wanted it to be, but good enough.
Is that his fancy rock dress?
Yes. Like his like, I just thought it was so weird that he has like a shirt that has a head.
I loved how Grace described it. He's like, it looks weird, but it must sound amazing. And I'm like, that's so neat.
Yeah. I like the way Gwen's. I don't know. I hope I sound okay because I don't have a headset mic. But I like the way Gwen's Rocky is all thigh, like very like thick thighs.
Listen,
like
it's that he
dancer.
He like hangs off of the.
Yeah, he'd be strong,
like,
right?
2 legs all the time, and then has
all leg
others to do other things. So like you gotta hit the gym if you're going to be doing that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
It's got to be a muscular rock, okay?
All right, and last but not least,
multimedia.
Multimedia.
Whoa!
I love this.
Does yours move?
Oh,
whoa!
I like the glitter, the little sequins.
Thank you. I really got into this last night. I had to pull it's culture. Don't ask questions.
Yeah.
No, but what's it made out of?
A paper bag.
I was just going to ask, is this like a paper bag situation, or are we looking more at like a construction paper?
It was a takeout bag because these are the only Sharpies that I have, and they're all multicolor.
Well, I think Frank and I got lower grades on the projects than Gwen.
Oh, absolutely.
A+ work, Michelle.
Thank you.
Honestly, I think we should auction off this original art to fund things, and it would be amazing, absolutely amazing. Speaking of amazing,
for the super fans that are in that very narrow.
Yeah. Oh, look at that. Oh, it is a good touch.
Look at that.
Mine's downstairs.
Look at
Mine's
that.
right here. I have it in my bag.
Yeah. The people who don't have shame for what they made.
So, like, here's the thing: on the back is a rubric because that's who I am.
Oh, see, on the back of mine was work papers too.
Right? It's you can see
recycling is important. That's what we learned.
Statement and
we have learned that recycling is important unless it becomes very, very dangerous, and then we have to burn.
And then we got up our carbon output, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, Frank, you're right. We should absolutely auction these off to the very niche market of non-pro super fans who are also Andy Weir fans.
Yes, absolutely. So, Andy Weir is tenting his fingers. He's like, "Good, I can get a copy of this, and then we can get that lawsuit going." It was an excellent read. Hats off to you, James, for the wonderful suggestion. I'm also going to recommend the Ars Technica article by Lee Hutchinson, which goes into much more detail about the squishiness of language and linguistics. A really fun article. And actually, speaking of that article, he makes a point describing the way sci-fi works with linguistics, and then there is the Andy Weir and the usefulness of how it's presented in this book, comparing it to C.J. Sherry, again, I don't know how to pronounce that, the Foreigner series, which does something completely different with language. So there is a book suggested in this article that were two very similar looking races, humans and these things that are basically bipedal humanoid looking things, think they are speaking the same language, but then get into a pretty severe war because they are definitely not.
What's the book?
So in our language, love
Foreigner.
means love. In their language, love means murder.
Like
that
effectively,
type of, like that.
according to the brief synopsis of this book, basically yes.
Okay.
But there was a language
Murder.
difference where they just did not understand. We both had agreed, humans and this alien race kind of agreed that this is our communal language, right? We know what we're saying. We're all like, yeah, no, we understand. But then later on found out that our words for things were completely different, and we were
kind of like when you get into different dialects and you're accidentally telling somebody to, screw a potato.
It gets really interesting. I've actually experienced that in my own household recently, where I used a phrase that I thought was a playful jab, but apparently in a slightly different dialect, it is an incredibly offensive term.
It's like one time I said bug under my breath, and my mom thought I said something else that starts with an F that I don't know if I could say on this channel. And I got in a lot of trouble, and I was so confused because I was like 6.
Yes.
Like, where did you hear that word? And I'm like, I don't know.
Confusion, because one of the things about this book that's a little hard is like they wouldn't even know that they were wrong. Right? They wouldn't know because they wouldn't have the basis to understand that. So I think the book is called the Foreigner series. It may be called The Visitor. We talk about it off channel. We need to discuss what our next book will be. This might be a good idea. It also may be too deep or too science fiction-y for us. But if you have any ideas, why don't you leave comments in this YouTube or Twitch or Facebook video, depending on where you saw it. And then definitely subscribe to us on YouTube and Twitch, the only place that gives us the moolah that we need, so we don't have to sell our original art to keep the engine going.
We're still willing to sell these beautiful masterpieces right here. I'll mail it out.
For the low price of any amount of money you'd like to send us.
Just subscribe to any Patreon level.
Yes. I was going to say
specifically the really high one where it's Michelle reads a chapter of an audiobook to you.
Could be this book.
Does that still exist?
It's still there. Someone's got the deep pockets.
One day. One day.
Yes, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you all for joining us, whether you're doing it live or on the recording that will come up almost immediately. I can't wait for the next book, because honestly, reading is just a whole nother level of just putting the world aside and just imagining and having fun and relaxing. I really do enjoy it.
Beautiful escape.
It really is a great escape. And this was a great book for an escape because, things ended mostly okay. As long as you don't look at the earth. Probably all right. They figured something out.
Probably
I'm
fine.
sure.
It's probably
fine.
We didn't kill each other completely in the time we were waiting. So
yeah, at least enough survived, and one space program. We're good.
Jeffrey Bezos. Jeffrey Bezos.
Wait a minute! Did you just have a Jeffrey Bezos theme song?
No, have you not seen that?
Oh my God, Frank! You live under Rocky. Like you got to get out.
Honestly, I've been so much happier now that I've not talked to. I know I'm not on social media. I'm not paying attention to anything. I'm just reading books by candlelight. It's the way humans.
The joke was that Bezos's program, it doesn't matter. I hope not.
It doesn't matter. I don't need any context for this. I'd rather believe that James just made up an impromptu theme song.
That's probably a better way to live.
Yes, indeed. So thank you all for watching. Like, follow, subscribe. You know the deal. And goodbye.
This has been a non-productive media presentation. Executive producer Frank Hablawi. This program and many others like it on the Non-Productive Network is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives license. Please share it, but ask before trying to change it or sell it. For more information, visit non-productive.com.